Nose. Research genuinely does not stop. Just weeks after their last big foundation release, the open source agent everyone in the self-hosted AI world has been watching just got hit with its largest update yet. And they called it Velocity. And once you see what's actually in it, the name makes total sense. This one update merged over 700 pull requests. It took the core engine of the agent, a single sprawling 16,000-line file, and collapsed it down to under 4,000 lines. It added a real multi-agent swarm system. It made searching your entire history 4,500 times faster and free. And it shipped a defense system against a brand new class of AI attack that most people watching this have never even heard of yet. This isn't a patch. It's a rebuild of the foundation while the thing is still running. For anyone who hasn't come across it, Hermes Agent is one of the most interesting open source projects in AI right now. It's MIT licensed, built by Noose Research, and the whole idea is radically different from a chatbot. It's not a copilot stuck inside your code editor. It's not a wrapper around one API. It's a persistent, autonomous agent that lives on your own server, runs 24/7, builds long-term memory, writes its own reusable skills, and genuinely gets more capable the longer you run it. It learns your projects. It remembers across restarts. And it talks to you through the apps you already use. Telegram, Discord, Slack, WhatsApp, and a dozen more. With this Velocity release, it's taking another serious step toward becoming something like a true agentic operating system. A thing you run once, and it just keeps getting smarter in the background. So here's the plan for this video. I'm going to walk you through every major piece of this update in plain language, and I'm going to show you why each one actually matters for running autonomous agents day to day. Tool search, the new agent swarm, the massive refactor, the security defenses, the new models and image generators, and a stack of rapid-fire upgrades. Stick with me because the swarm demo in the middle, where I had it clone a real website using 3 agents working together, is the moment this stopped feeling like a toy and started feeling like a team. And the security piece near the end is something every single person running an agent needs to understand right now. Let's start with one of the smartest additions in the whole release, because it solves a problem that quietly breaks almost every serious agent setup. Tool search. Here's the problem in plain terms. As you connect more capabilities to your agent, more MCP servers, more integrations, more plugins, every one of those tools normally has to expose its full schema to the model, its instructions, its parameters, all of it loaded up front. And those schemas get big. Connect enough tools and they start eating an enormous chunk of your context window before you've even typed your prompt. Every single request drags all of that along. And the cruel part is that almost none of those tools are relevant to whatever you're actually doing right now. You're paying a context tax on dozens of tools to use one. Tool search fixes this with what's basically lazy loading, but for AI tools. Instead of loading every tool's schema up front, Hermes now uses progressive loading. The model only pulls in a specific tool's full definition at the moment it actually needs it for the task at hand. Nothing more. What that buys you is real. Smaller context usage, faster agent responses, much better scalability as your MCP ecosystem grows, more efficient multi-agent workflows. And this is the big one. Far more room left over for actual reasoning. Instead of the context being clogged with tool definitions, the model is never going to touch. And the design choice underneath it is smart. The core tools you rely on constantly, file editing, terminal access, browser automation, the memory system, web search, task delegation, those stay instantly available at all times. They're always loaded, always ready. It's only the external MCP and plugin tools that get deferred until they're actually called. So you get the efficiency without losing the responsiveness on the stuff you use every minute. Let me show you why this matters in practice. On my own setup, I've got something like 79 skills and dozens of tools installed. Before this update, a simple request might force the agent to wade through all of that. Now, when I send a prompt, say, create a research notes page in Notion, the tool search just reaches for the Notion tools it needs and ignores everything else. It kept my context clean. It didn't scour through all 79 skills, and it created the page fast. As people connect bigger and bigger tool ecosystems, this is exactly the kind of unglamorous infrastructure that decides whether an autonomous agent stays fast and usable or slowly chokes on its own capabilities. Quick note for anyone who wants to follow along. If you don't have Hermes yet, there's a one-command install on their site. I'll link it. It runs on Linux, macOS, and WSL2, and native Windows support exists now too, though it's still experimental, so most people should run it through WSL2. And if you already have it installed, you just type the update command in your terminal, and it pulls the new version down automatically. That's the whole upgrade. Now the headline feature, and the one that genuinely changed how I think about this tool, the new agent swarm system, built right into the Kanban board. First, what's the Kanban board? It's Hermes' visualization of everything happening across your sessions. A live view of what your agents are doing, what's in progress, and what's stuck. Before this update, you mostly had a single agent trying to handle a task on its own, start to finish. Now you can deploy a swarm, multiple specialized agents that split up a big job and work on it in parallel. Here's how it works. You hand Hermes a larger goal, and the orchestrator automatically decomposes it. It breaks the big task into smaller objectives and distributes those subtasks across a swarm of different agents, each with its own role. And the topology is genuinely thought through. When you spin one up, it builds a graph with a root coordinator, a set of parallel workers doing the actual labor, a gated verifier agent that reviews the outputs before they're accepted, and a synthesizer that combines everything at the end, all sharing one common workspace so they're never working off stale information. I deployed one live to test it. You start it with the swarm command, then you describe what you want the swarm to tackle. My prompt: build an AI SaaS landing page. One agent was assigned to research competitors. Another was building the front end. And a verifier agent reviewed all the outputs, synthesized them, and combined everything at the end. You manage the whole thing through the web UI, watching the session run in real time. Every tool each agent is using, live as it happens. The competitor I pointed it at to analyze and clone was Stripe. And honestly, it did a pretty solid job. The result looked clearly inspired by Stripe's landing page. It nailed the main layout and the key placeholder structure. Was it a pixel-perfect clone? No. The gradient was a bit off, and some components weren't fully reproduced. But when you put it next to the real site, you can absolutely see it captured the core UI structure. And remember, that wasn't one model grinding away alone. That was a coordinated team of agents researching, building, and verifying in parallel, then merging their work. That's the leap the swarm represents. This is the thing that separates a swarm that actually finishes work from one that just stalls. The reason multi-agent setups usually fail is dead handoffs. One agent finishes, and the next one never picks up cleanly. The whole thing grinds to a halt. By giving every agent one shared source of truth for what to do next, who's doing it, and what's blocked, Hermes makes the swarm actually complete the job instead of collapsing halfway. There are even guardrails baked in, things like a respawn guard that stops runaway agents from spawning endless copies of themselves in a loop, which is exactly the kind of failure mode that bites you when you let agents run unattended. Here's an update you'll never directly notice, but it quietly makes everything else in this release possible. The massive Codebase refactor. The core agent loop, the engine at the very center of Hermes, was a single file of over 16,000 lines. In this release, they collapsed it down to roughly 3,800 lines, a 76% reduction, and split it across more than a dozen focused, cohesive modules. And to be clear about the scale of this, the whole Velocity release came from well over 1,000 commits and several hundred merged pull requests with hundreds of community contributors pitching in. This is a genuinely crowdsourced rebuild. Now, why should you care about a number like 16,000 lines down to 3,800 if you're just using the thing? Because it's the difference between a project that slows down over time and one that keeps accelerating. A giant monolithic file is brutal to maintain. Every change risks breaking something else. Every new feature takes longer to add than the last. By breaking the engine into clean modules, Noose made Hermes dramatically easier to maintain, extend, and ship new features into. In other words, the refactor is the reason all the other features in this release could land at once. And it's the reason the next release will come faster too. When you see an open source project do a big internal cleanup like this, it's usually a signal that they're planning to move fast for a long time. The velocity in the name isn't just about runtime speed, it's about development speed. And the runtime speed did improve too. Cold start time, how long the agent takes to launch, got cut down again by roughly another 40% in their internal benchmarks. Per conversation function calls dropped by 47%, so it's doing meaningfully less redundant work on every single turn. There's even a head-to-head benchmark where Hermes' startup now beats a major competing CLI agent. None of this is flashy, all of it compounds. Okay, this next one is the part I really want you to pay attention to, because it's about a threat most people running agents have never heard of, and it's becoming a real problem. Prompt injection defense. Let me explain the danger first. When you run an autonomous agent, it's constantly pulling in text from the outside world. The output of tools it calls, web pages it reads, memories it recalls, skills it loaded. The attack, which researchers have started calling brainworm class or promptware attacks, works by hiding malicious instructions inside that incoming text. A poisoned web page, a booby-trapped tool result a tampered memory, any of them can carry a hidden command that tries to hijack your agent and make it do something you never asked for. And because an autonomous agent acts on its own, with access to your files and your terminal, a successful hijack is genuinely dangerous. This isn't theoretical. It's based on recent published security research into exactly this kill chain. What Hermes added in Velocity is a defense that guards the context window at 3 separate choke points. The 3 main ways malicious text can sneak in: through tool output, through recalled memory, and through stored skills. So the agent now actively defends against instructions trying to smuggle themselves in through any of those routes. For a tool that's designed to run unattended on your own infrastructure, with real access to your system, this is exactly the kind of protection that should be table stakes. And most agent projects don't have it yet. The fact that Noose built it in directly tells you they're taking the autonomous and always-on promise seriously. While we're on safety and trust, there's a related upgrade, a built-in MCP catalog. Before, if you wanted to add a new integration, you'd often have to go hunting around GitHub, documentation pages, and random repositories to find one, and some of those are genuinely risky to install blindly. Now, Hermes ships a centralized, curated catalog for discovering and installing MCP integrations directly inside the platform. You run a command, you get an interactive picker, you install with a single keystroke, and credentials get prompted for safely at install time. It closes the discovery gap, and it makes the whole process of adding new capabilities both easier and a lot safer. And one more on the security and credentials front. There's now a secrets manager integration, so instead of juggling a separate API key for every single provider, you can use one bootstrap token to handle them all. Fewer loose keys floating around your config is just better hygiene, especially on a machine that's running autonomously. If you take one thing from this whole video, let it be this section. As we all start handing more autonomy and more access to these agents, the security model matters as much as the capabilities. An agent that's incredibly powerful but trivially hijackable is a liability. This release moved hard in the right direction. Let's talk about what's new on the model side. Because Hermes is model agnostic, it can route to hundreds of different models through providers like OpenRudder, and Velocity expanded the lineup in some useful ways. First, there's a deep integration round with XAI's models, a whole set of interlocking improvements, including a dedicated web search plugin built on XAI, an OAuth proxy, natural-sounding text-to-speech, and security hardening. So if you're in that ecosystem, support got noticeably deeper and more polished, not just bolted on. And critically, because Hermes connects to so many providers, you're not locked into any one model. You can route different subtasks to different models, which pairs beautifully with the Swarm system, by the way. You can send the heavy reasoning to a top-tier expensive model and route the simpler grunt work to a cheaper, faster one, so you're only paying premium prices where they actually buy you something. There's even a per-task model override now, so inside a single swarm, different agents can run on different models depending on what each one needs. That's a genuinely smart way to control costs on long autonomous runs. On the creative side, Hermes added Crea 2 as an image generation provider. That's Crea's newer image model focused on balancing visual quality with fine-grained creative control, things like style transfer and adjustable creative settings. It's now built right in, available in multiple quality tiers, so you can generate images directly inside your agent workflows without leaving the platform or wiring up a separate service. There's also a broader image generation plugin system, so the door's open for more providers over time. The through line here is flexibility. Hermes isn't betting on one model winning. It's built so you can plug in whatever's best, or cheapest or fastest, for each specific job, and swap freely as the landscape shifts. In a world where a new best model drops every few weeks, that provider-agnostic design is honestly one of the most practical things about the whole project. There's a whole stack of smaller upgrades in Velocity that each solve a real annoyance, so let me run through them rapid fire. Because together, they add up to a much smoother experience. First, the rebuilt session search, and this one's wild. The old version used a helper language model to search your past sessions. It cost around 30 cents per call, took about 30 seconds to summarize a few sessions, and would sometimes just make things up if the right session wasn't even in the results. The new version threw all that out. It uses no language model at all. It's completely free, and it's roughly 4,500 times faster. We're talking milliseconds instead of a minute and a half. Searching your entire history for context is now instant and costs nothing. For a persistent agent that's accumulating months of memory, that's a massive quality of life win. Then there's skill bundles. Instead of loading skills one at a time, you can now bundle a whole workflow's worth of skills and load them all with a single / command. If you've got a repeatable process, you package it once and fire it off instantly. There's a TUI session orchestrator, a terminal interface that lets you manage multiple live Hermes sessions from a single window, and even connect other agents without restarting Hermes. So if you're running several things at once, you've got one cockpit to manage them all. The cold start performance, as I mentioned, got noticeably better again. And there's OpenHands integration, a new optional skill that lets Hermes delegate coding tasks to the OpenHands CLI, joining the family of coding workers it can already orchestrate, like Claude Code, Codex, and OpenCode. OpenHands is the model agnostic one of that group, so you can route a coding subtask to literally whatever provider is cheapest for the job. It drops right into swarms and delegation flows. They also added another messaging platform to the gateway. Hermes now reaches you across more than 20 platforms from a single process, plus the secrets manager I mentioned, and a long list of bug fixes, something like 15 high priority and 65 secondary fixes cleaned up in this one release. There's genuinely more in the full changelog than I can cover here. So let me pull this all together, because when you step back, the shape of what Noose is building comes into focus. Look at what landed in this single release. Tool search, so the agent scales without choking on its own capabilities. A real swarm system, so it's not one agent struggling alone, but a coordinated team that researches, builds, verifies, and synthesizes. A 76% rebuild of the core engine, so they can keep shipping this fast for a long time. A serious prompt injection defense, so all that autonomy doesn't become a security hole. A safer way to discover and install new tools. Flexible per task model routing to control costs. And a pile of quality of life upgrades that make the whole thing faster and smoother to live with. That's not a feature update. That's a project deliberately marching toward being a true agentic operating system. Something you install once, run on your own hardware, and watch get smarter on its own. And the part I keep coming back to is that it's open source, MIT licensed, runs entirely on your own infrastructure, with your data staying on your machine. In an era where almost every capable AI tool wants you renting access to a black box in someone else's cloud, an agent this powerful that you fully own and can audit line by line is a genuinely different proposition. The speed Noose is shipping at, combined with that ownership model, is what makes this one worth paying close attention to. So I want to hear from you. Are you running Hermes yet? And if so, what are you actually using it for? Coding, research, automations? Something I haven't thought of. And if you're not running it yet, is it the self-hosted setup holding you back, or something else? Drop it in the comments, because I read them and the best ideas often turn into the next video. If this breakdown helped you understand what's actually in the Velocity release instead of just the headline, hit the like button. It genuinely helps the channel. Subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you catch the next drop the moment it lands. And take a look at the previous videos to stay caught up. But with that, have an amazing day, spread some positivity,